This is a Rough Tiger production.
And you, and you, and you, and you were there. Some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fog hat,
Dog hats
fog,
and
fog hat.
uh golden earring and hey folks.
Uh, this is Dream Idiots. My name is Morris. That is Bryan. We were
Hey.
reminiscing on the greatness of the Rolling Stones and songs they didn't sing. Uh, did I mention this is Dream Idiots? Did I? Anyway,
No, you have not yet.
okay. This is Dream Idiots. Each week, Bryan and I tell each other stories, bring you along for the ride. Bryan, they can find us at a variety of places besides their earbuds or headphones,
They
such
can.
as our website.
Dreamidiots.com. All of our episodes there going back now 2.5 years. They're all there. We're on pretty much every single podcast platform there is. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, all of them. So wherever you're listening to us on, you can subscribe. Please, if you can, I think on every app, on every platform, you can grab this episode and hit forward and just send it to someone via text message and say, "Hey, listen to these dumb fucks." We would love to boost our listenership and get some more ears on our stuff. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Dream Idiots, and you can drop us a line at dreamidiotspodcast@gmail. And we're also on Patreon at Dream Idiots 2. All of our stuff is there, including video of the two of us yakking at each other. It's not riveting video, but it's there if you would like to partake.
Grandma, listen to these dumb fucks. They've got a podcast. I've got one announcement that you brought up, Bryan, so we can
Huh?
share the duties on this, I guess. But June 10th was a hearing for parole for Mr. Leonard Peltier. You can go back and listen to the three-part story we did on the American Indian movement and Mr. Peltier's time in jail for, in my opinion, something he most likely did not do. Although if people feel differently, such as the man who yelled at me at King Super the other day for wearing a free ear shirt, yelled at me and ran away in the King Super uh, grocery store. "He should die in jail," and then he vanished.
And then
Um,
dashed right.
yeah, and then a yell and dash, I guess. But we should know by this week if Mr. Peltier is finally going to get his parole after many, many attempts to be paroled from prison. So it's my sincere hope that he does, but
Yeah, absolutely.
we will see.
Yeah, I think I read it's his first parole hearing in like 12 or 15 years, and he's been in prison for over 50 years. And it's pretty clear that he was railroaded because he's not a straight white rich man. So obviously he's guilty, right? So hopefully justice will be served and he'll be let free because
Yes,
he's got to be.
and
He's well into his 80s now.
yes, and I believe he is, and yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully,
Right.
Leonard will be free by the next time we have. Well, probably be 2 weeks or so of rigmarole before he can get out if he does indeed get his parole granted.
Right.
Bryan, it is an odd numbered episode, which you pointed out to me. I was off by an episode. It's episode 119, which is a fine number, and you get to go first.
Excellent. So I stumbled across this recently. I know you may have some insight into this because I know that for a number of years, close to a decade, maybe in fact, you were a Boy Scout troop leader. Like 7 or 8 years for you?
I was involved with not maybe not that long, but I was either a parent or a Cub Scout leader or
Okay.
a adult leader. Yeah.
Okay. And Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, they have those fabulous merit badges.
Yep.
And recently, so Cub Scouts, I think they were, or Boy Scouts rather, were I think were founded in 1910 and definitely have evolved over time. I suspect it's the case that when it started up, or especially sort of maybe after World War II, in my mind, I associate it a little bit more with kind of rural life. I don't really, think so much of sort of city kids being involved in Boy Scouts. Maybe that's just something I made up. But over time, obviously, Boy Scouts are sort of known for the merit badges, the things that you can learn over time and demonstrate your ability in a whole host of different skills and abilities and topics, etc. And some of these over time have evolved and they've phased some out. Here, this is a recent list. Here are the top seven Boy Scout merit badges that have been discontinued because they're sort of no longer relevant. And then part two of this is I'm trying to instill this idea that we need as a society to have merit badges across the width and breadth of our world, because I think if people were given merit badges once they demonstrated some ability, that people actually might try harder to be better citizens. So I've here are seven things that have been done away with by the Boy Scouts. But I'm going to give you my seven potential merit badges for adults that we can strive for later on.
Okay.
Okay. Number seven, taxidermy. Okay. Well, I've never been a hunter. I've been out with people hunting. I don't really get it. If you're out there and you're a hunter, and in my mind, if you are actually eating the animals that you kill, okay, fine. I don't really understand it as a sport, and obviously, I mean, I would assume that whatever hunters, that the hunting as a pastime, I would assume, has sort of dropped off over time, but maybe not, because you obviously stores like Cabela's and Sam's certainly do have huge weapons sections still. But Boy Scouts did away with taxidermy because teenage boys' bedrooms already smell bad enough as it is. So why would you make it any worse? So taxidermy is gone. Number six, I misread this or misinterpreted this when I first saw it. Master at Arms. I thought this was like gunmanship, but the merit badge in Master at Arms is basically hand-to-hand combat. And so stick fighting, jujitsu, judo, any of those things would have fallen under this merit badge of Master at Arms, and it has it has gone away and was not replaced. Boy Scouts start at age 12, 13, I forget.
Roughly when you switch over from elementary school to middle school. That's when you start
Okay,
to
so that's whatever. Maybe that's 11, yeah. And
12,
so
11, yeah,
11, yeah.
12, 13, somewhere in there.
And so number five on the
Whatever it
list,
takes.
um, automobiling. So driving, basically. So again, if my assumption is correct and Boy Scouts are somewhat more rural, I mean, it's definitely the case that kids growing up on farms were driving shit around at a much earlier age than you and I were,
Yeah.
because they're out there. Oh shoot, we have to plow this field. We have to whatever. And so, it 3-4 generations ago made more sense. Now, not so much. I mean, these days, I mean, I was chomping at the bit for my driver's license when I got mine, but these days with rideshare, et cetera, I mean, tons of young folks are blowing off learning how to drive. Just foregoing it completely because rideshare and I guess whatever, different times.
There is still a merit badge in auto mechanics,
Well,
like
yeah,
learning your way around
yeah,
an engine,
right,
which is
yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah.
which makes sense, right? Absolutely, yeah. No, number four, foundry practice. So right now
Oh wow.
I'm about halfway through a different podcast I'm listening to. It's sort of a mean podcast, but they're talking about and laughing about industrial accidents. So foundry practice is okay. What does it take to melt down 1,000 tons of steel into a liquid? So you have to get it up to 3,000 degrees. Okay, maybe we don't want teenagers knowing how to do this. I'm all for, especially in this day and age, like trades, but this is one step beyond a trade in my mind. So maybe having 15-year-olds with carrying molten lava around your garage might not be a great idea.
Help you get rid of your taxidermy mistakes.
There you go. Yeah. Number three, speaking of things that smell bad, number three that the Boy Scouts did away with, pigeon raising. The
Ooh.
flying rat. There is, I mean, I'm not sure I can think of an animal that disgusts me more than the average pigeon. Just a disgusting little animal. Doves at least like during wartime had a purpose because they, like the homing doves that would, could be trained to send messages. Pigeons, I don't get it. They're disgusting. They make the noise they make is awful. The endless bird shit. I just, a ferret, a possum, anything would be better than a pigeon. But the Boy Scouts did away with it. Number two, again, in keeping with my sense that the Boy Scouts is somewhat more rural. Number two, beef production. So, future farmers, this is still a huge industry because obviously cows are still being turned into burgers. But this has been done away with from a Boy Scout, perspective. And so so you have to join the 4-H in order to get into, that learn about that skill, I guess.
That was going to be my comment, that's what the 4-H club kind of took up the slack there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. And the number one skill or merit badge that was done away with by the Boy Scouts is, any idea?
Molestation avoidance. I don't
So
know.
close. Stalking, but it's not stalking. It's not stalking in quite the same in the same sense. By stalking, they mean tracking. So this one actually just they changed.
Yeah.
And so okay, so this is a legitimate skill, being able to related to hunting, I guess. So
Yeah,
tracking.
sure.
Okay, well, fair enough, makes sense. But calling it stalking, yeah, I have the merit badge in stalking in 2024. That means something completely different.
I know their address. I know where they work. I know who their brothers are. I know who their
Right.
sisters are.
I know her bra size. I know her hairdresser's name. Like, no, no, you have a problem. So, just a few things I'm proposing here. Merit badges that, there are adults out there who play Pokemon Go. I think people would go for shit like this. I'm seriously only half joking when I say this. Number one proposed merit badge from Dream Idiots: conversational Spanish. We live
Okay.
I live in Texas. I'm not. I understand Spanish. When I listen to Spanish, I can pick up a little bit. San Antonio is now 53%, 55%. Latinx, obviously, the vast majority of them are speak English or are bilingual. But if you live in the South or Southwest or West Coast, the Latinx, percentage of our population, of the U.S. population, is the fastest growing segment of America. And this is, okay, you can be racist assholes if you want, but look at it as a marketable skill. If you know Spanish, that puts you ahead of other people applying for the same job. Maybe not in Ohio, but if you're anywhere close to, the South and Southwest, is just view it as a job skill. If you have to, can't view it any other way. I'm embarrassed, not daily. I just regret deeply the fact that I don't know Spanish. To this day, having been born and raised in Texas, and tons of folks in my family going back generations were fluent, including my mother. So, but I stupidly took German and other things because I was a dumbass as a teenager. So anyway, learning some basic Spanish. Number two.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, I like that one.
Number two suggestion. This is just from yours truly. Know how to boil an egg, hard boil an egg. You got some eggs in your fridge. You seriously take the eggs out, cover them with water, put them on the stove. You bring them to a boil them for 3 minutes, and turn it off. You have hard boiled eggs. It's not a big deal. It's not hard, but it's eggs are like the most important source of inexpensive protein for lots of folks that can't afford to buy meat. To learn how to hard boil an egg. I'm blown away by how many folks don't know how to do that. I do it. I do it all the time.
And learn how to do it at altitude.
Oh, really? So what's the mile high recipe for doing it?
You have to burn things differently at altitude because of air pressure, and
So
it
you
just
have to boil them longer. Yeah,
a little
right.
longer. Yeah,
Okay.
Just takes water
Makes sense.
longer to boil at altitude. So,
Huh. Yeah. So there you go. Number three, random suggestion: merging. I guarantee you, insurance companies would give you a discount if you were willing to pull into the let's say, USAA or State Farm parking lot and demonstrate an ability to merge, they would give you a little sticker for the back of your car and they would give you a discount on your insurance. Uh, a yield sign is not the same as a green light. It doesn't mean go like hell. Just learn the basic lesson that there are other drivers on the road, and you don't always have the right of way. And learning the skill would be a boon to your longevity. If nothing else, do it for yourself, because endlessly cutting people off will get you killed eventually.
I merged today.
Cross five
Little,
lanes, right?
little check mark sticker for your back of your car.
Mhm. Number 4, knowing north. So I used to believe this was something that men grasped more than women. But now in the days of iPhones and GPS, I'm pretty well convinced, sort of along the lines of the hard-boiled egg, that pretty much no one under the age of 40 knows that the sun comes up in the east and sets in the west. Um, Maybe it's a gene in my family. I could land anywhere on the earth, and provided it wasn't high noon, I could tell you where north was pretty much immediately. And in the days of old, and medieval times, up until into the 20th century, this was a vital skill that would be able to keep you alive, just knowing what direction you were walking. And so in the 21st century, it sort of pisses me off when I tell someone, giving someone directions, proceed to a certain road and then turn north, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. Like, what? Huh? That doesn't help me. What's north? So know
Yeah,
where north is.
that's one of the things, like when we would take the scouts out on hikes, like it's pretty easy here in the Front Range. See those mountains? That's west.
It's
If you're in
always west.
Denver, the
They're not
mountains are
moving.
to the west.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Texas, it's a little harder. So number 5, maybe this is old fashioned and stupid. Those are 2 words that certainly describe me. Not sure what to even call this. Is it basic decency or chivalry or what? If you're a man, you stand up when a woman you don't know enters a room. You need to know how to shake someone's hand firmly but briefly. You need to know how to look someone in the eye when you're speaking to them.
Mhm.
You need to be willing to hold a door for someone, man or woman, and be okay with it. Be okay with it if they don't say thank you. I'm not suggesting you have to be everyone's best friend. I'm not saying you're everyone's therapist. But again, as with the merging, a basic low-level recognition of the fact that you're not alone in this world. Be willing to tell someone that you hope they have a good day and actually mean it, and be okay with it if they don't reciprocate.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
I like to follow it up with a après vous.
Well, that's foreign. That just confuses folks. Like, what?
Fuck
What'd
you
you
too,
call me?
buddy.
Right. Number 6, laundry. If you're a Homo sapien over the age of 18 and you still don't quite understand washing different colors together and water temperatures, you shouldn't be allowed to procreate. My freshman year at Trinity, I had to show 2 people that I recall how to use a washing machine. I'm not perfect. My parents weren't perfect, but I started washing my own clothes at like age 12 because I was sick to death of my mom was sick to death of my clothes that smelled like sweat and death. My brother for a time actually worked in a Red Lobster,
Oh
and
God. Oh.
and he was under strict instructions. That's when he learned to wash his own clothes, and his shit was so bad. He was told, okay, you may not come in the house. You have to walk in directly into the garage where we didn't have a laundry room. Washer and dryer was in the garage. Walk into the garage, strip in the garage, throw all that crap directly into the washing machine, and this is how you wash it. Uh, Along the same lines, all men should have a basic sewing kit. Again, going back to when I was in college, you go out of town, especially if it's sort of work related, you lose a button on a shirt. Oxford shirts, dress shirts, have extra buttons on the bottom of the shirt, inside. You should know how to cut that button off and sew it on the front of the shirt, um, because it's so simple. I mean, it feels like men now think that sewing a button is somehow simultaneously beneath them but it's also sort of comically difficult. I mean, it is the easiest thing in the world. You literally cannot screw it up, and it takes about 3 minutes. So a button, just learn something. Number 7, basic geography. I'm not suggesting you have to know, if you were handed a blank map of the lower 48, okay, maybe you don't, maybe being asked to name all 48 is too much. You should know your own state capital. You should be able to recognize the states that border yours. If someone handed you a blank map of the U.S. and asked you to point to our nation's capital and you point to Washington State, you deserve to be taken out and shot. This is really, really simple stuff, and I'm routinely surprised by all the folks who can't manage it. So anyway, 7 suggestions. I think this is a great idea. Tons of folks, play all kinds of online games and play things like Pokemon. As I said before, you can put badges on your car or earn badges for your Facebook page, because you can earn badges for being a top fan for this page or that page, something like that. So this is just the first 7 I came up with. Other potential badges could be for, I don't know, basic carpentry or cunnilingus, or being able to being
Jesus
able
Christ, Brian.
being able to demonstrate the ability to do percentages in your head. There are all kinds of things that you could be able to, demonstrate and wear proudly on your car or somewhere, that you're a skilled person. It'll make you happier and more productive, and will enhance your role in society.
Well, have you ever seen the online fights when people talk about Georgia and they're like, dude, it's a state, not a country. It's like, no, it is a country. Like,
Right.
it can be both. There's a
It's
state here and a
actually-
country there.
Right. It's like New York. It's a city and a state. Right.
No.
I'm right. You're wrong. Right.
I agree with
there you
all
go.
those. That's great. And that should be one of the things that they try to do with those badges, and the little ones, the younger gals and guys who
Weebelows,
are
right.
scouts, below that, the Cub Scouts, when you do learn things like, one of the things you can learn is basic household maintenance, like, how do you fix a leaky pipe? How do you
Mhm.
like, for the boys got to help me one time for one of their belt loops they earned was they helped me reseat a toilet, which was, I showed them
wow.
how to turn off the water supply, and what wrenches to use, and how to disconnect the water line, and that stuff like that. Uh, learning little things like that can really go a long way to,
Cool.
just making you not even just with a specific task, but making you think about how things work. Like,
Right.
what steps should you take to, let's turn off the power first so we don't electrocute ourselves. Let's turn off the water first so we don't, right? I mean, just basic stuff of the
Right.
process of how you get things done.
Right. Problem
Which
solving.
is just or problem solving. Critical thinking skills is what I put it down to. And no matter what you do, develop those critical thinking skills. So,
Right.
I think that's what yours kind of gets to as well. If it's sewing a button or some of the other things you mentioned. Yeah, no, good stuff. I like that. Grown up merit, basic survival merit badges, basic. I like that.
Right. Yeah. I would put on there as well. I'm biased in this way, but knowing how to drive a stick.
Yeah.
Is also like, really. So, I've had several, manual transmissions, and then on one occasion that I can recall, many years ago, because I was being lazy and didn't want to have to find a parking spot. I tried to use valet parking somewhere in downtown Austin, and the guy looked at me like I was asking him to drive a spaceship. He'd be like, "Well, I don't know what this. I don't know how to do this." And God damn it. Okay, park it myself.
Yeah, the first thing I learned how to drive was a tractor, and it just,
Oh yeah.
I learned on tractors and big farm trucks, so they're all manual. So
Right.
yeah, good stuff. Good life skills to learn. Speaking of other life skills, Brian,
Mhm.
do we have a curse word of the week?
It's time for the Dream Idiot's curse word of the week.
Yes, the curse word. Ever heard of the dining dead?
Would these be folks who okay, I'm gonna guess one or two things.
Okay.
It's the folks who come as you get older, you start eating dinner earlier and earlier during the day, or they're the folks who come to restaurants right before they close, camp out, and just really inconvenience everybody who works in a restaurant.
Ooh, so close. So, I suspect you're not a fan of the Walking Dead. I watched that a little bit the first few seasons. This is not a zombie reference, but the Dining Dead is occasionally you'll see a couple in a restaurant that they've been married for 75 years and
Mhm.
they're out and they're in a restaurant and he's maybe reading and they're not talking to each other at all.
Ah, okay.
The- dining out in absolute silence. The Dining Dead.
Okay. Or you see families and they're all on their phones and none of them
Uh,
are
yeah,
interacting.
that's same thing, right?
Yeah. I was thinking along the line. I guess the folks that come in late and stay forever are
Mm.
the dining
Piss off the staff,
campers.
right?
Yeah, we used to because I had my stint at a seafood restaurant at the old
Oh
Pelican's
yeah,
Wharf in San
Pelican's Wharf.
Antonio, and I worked with these two guys who were both named Todd, and you just refer to them collectively as the Todds because they hung out together, they had the same car and everything, and they would sit there and they'd stand behind their partition and go home. Oh, it's late. Go home. Stop camping out. Bring a tent next time. Where's your fucking Coleman lantern? You don't walk in at 5 till 10 and pull crap like that. That's just that maybe that's a merit badge. Dining
Dining
etiquette
etiquette,
including
right?
includes not screwing a waiter or waitress at the wait staff and
Right. Tipping 20%. 20% is the minimum. 20% is the minimum for bad service in my mind.
I like that. The dining dead. Okay. Are you ready for mine?
I'm ready.
Well, Brian, I've done two stories in a row that were literary in some effect. Last week, I did a story on a great lost novel of Texas, The Inheritors, and before that, I dazzled you with my brilliance in historical study of edited final lines from books.
Hmm.
Um, and I thought I would round out my trifecta, and this is a good one because we're having this is a fun episode. I like this. I've got a summer reading list here because
Oh,
what
nice.
I've done is I've put together, as you know, I'm a detective mystery thriller buff, and I've put together a list of my 5 favorite series from authors and my favorite characters from those authors. And I had to refresh my memory on a couple of them because some of them are these authors unfortunately are long gone. Two of them at least. But the main sources I use, and if you're ever trying to remember a book or a character, go to the website stopyourkillingme.com. It's a great website that has things indexed by both characters and authors, should you be able to remember the character you used to follow, but not the author or vice versa. So I thought I would take these down for those of you who enjoy a good summer read. Even if you can't get away for a vacation, maybe you can get away for a vacation with a book. And I thought I would bring out my 5 favorite series. And some of these you've probably heard of, Brian. Some of them hopefully you haven't. Um, let's get going with number 5. Stuart Kaminsky, the late Stuart Kaminsky. He passed away around 2009 or so. He had a variety of series of books. He had the Porfiry Rosnikov series set in Soviet Russia. He had the Rabbi and the Priest series that were set in Chicago. He had a series about a process server in Florida, all of which were great. But my favorite Stuart Kaminsky series was called the Toby Peters Mysteries.
Hmm.
And
No idea.
these were set during the golden age of Hollywood, so the late 30s through the 40s. And in each of these, the character Toby Peters, a private eye to the stars, basically, would take on a different case from a famous Hollywood personality. And the first one in this series is with Errol Flynn, and it's called A Bullet for a Star. It came out in 1977. If you're at all interested in the golden age of Hollywood, I highly recommend these books because he does a great job of painting the picture, addressing legends of Hollywood stars. It really is a wonderful little taste of um, a bygone era. And my personal favorite is one where he takes on a case for the great Emmett Kelly, the clown. And Kelly is doing his famous sweeping up the spotlight bit that he used to do as a clown, where he's trying to
Uh,
sweep the spotlight into the. And Toby Peters is generally a pretty easygoing guy. I believe Kelly's been getting death threats. And as the narrator of his own adventure, Toby Peters says, "I decided then and there, anyone who wanted to take this man off the face of the planet didn't deserve to live." It's just this. It's a hard boiled mystery, but it's also a fun look at the golden age of Hollywood. Stuart Kaminsky had a lot of series, and they were all great, but this one stands out to me: the Toby Peters mysteries.
hmm.
Really fun stuff. I used to have them all, but during moves, books are heavy, so you eventually sell them
Yeah.
off. But you can occasionally find some in your old used bookstores because most of them are out of print. There's about 24 or so of these books, and he wrote them up until I believe 2006 or so. So it was nearly 30 years worth of books in the Toby Peters series. This next series of books, number 4, there's only 4 books in this series to my knowledge, and I think she's done with this. I don't know. The first book in the series is called The War Against Miss Winter, and this is a series of books featuring an amateur detective. She's a part-time actress named Rosie Winter. It's set during World War II, mainly New York. It's by Catherine Miller Haynes. This is the great series, the Rosie Winter Mysteries. One of the books she takes off and goes and works in the USO. So it's got this really nice sense of the war effort, and what this young lady does for her part in the war effort, and how she becomes an amateur detective. And what I really admire about it is that I've known Catherine Miller Haynes since high school. We used to hit each other in drama tournaments. She went to Trinity. She was at Trinity with us. She was in my year. And I found out that she became a writer. So I went and saw her at Murder by the Book in Houston, where you get to meet with the authors and they talk about the writing process and how they go about writing. And there's this one guy who, for some reason, felt the need to point out that I notice you don't use any racial slurs in your work. She was like, I'm sorry? She goes, well, people refer to
Am I supposed
Japanese
to?
people refer to Japanese people by certain names in books back then. You know, we had names for them back then. And it was like he was just getting really close to dropping some. He goes, well, as
Not
the author
everyone
of this
did.
series, I feel that I can use whatever language I want and don't need to fall prey to racist language, that I don't have to do that kind of stuff. And she really shut this guy down because he always showed up at events and would ask questions like that, where it's like, what are you wanting permission to do something bad? Why are you here?
Right. Shut up.
And then one night I was at Barnes and Noble across town somewhere, and the same guy was having an argument with one of the people working in the film section of Barnes and Noble.
Oh no.
And he was just like, no, I just don't understand it. I couldn't figure out who the narrator was or what these guys were doing. And they were fighting over, they weren't fighting, but whether or not
Green eggs and ham? No.
no, it was whether or not Terrence Malick's Thin Red Line was a good movie or not. And the guy said, well, Terrence Malick is about painting pictures. The narrative kind of falls away to what you're trying to see on the screen. And it's not terribly important who the narrator is, because it's about this group of characters, and it shifts in time, it shifts in place. And the guy walked off, and I said, good for you. And he says, he is in here all the time,
Picking
always
fights.
arguing, just for no reason will come up and just start talking about stuff he hates. And some people, this is what this guy said that I just loved, some people just need to be told, no, you're wrong. And I just thought that was hilarious. But Catherine kind of shut him down with this talk, and she really does a great job of recreating the World War II atmosphere. The USO book where they go into the Pacific really stuck with me as my favorite of the series. But I've got them on my shelf here. The Rosie Winter Mysteries, the first one being The War Against Miss Winter, a really nice series of mysteries set during that time period.
Cool.
Number 3, let's go across the world to Arnaldur Indriðasson's Erlendur Mysteries, set in Reykjavik, Iceland. There was this period of time where Nordic noir became kind of its own thing. Helene Thurston, of course, the dude who wrote The Girl Who Kicks the Hornet's Nest, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I can't think of his name. But Arnaldur Indriðason is the one that really, really caught my attention with Erlendur. The first English language book in this series is called Jar City from 2004. There's 2 more before that who've never been translated into English. And then there's a couple of prequels that are set that are after the final novel in this series. This series really takes an arc, and I think there's about a dozen books. There's a dozen books in it, but it features this detective, Erlendur, he's in Reykjavik, and he's an excellent detective, but he's also fascinated with people who go missing out in the hinterlands. And so he will just go wandering out in the wilds of Iceland, and as it's slowly revealed, there's a reason for why he's obsessed with people who go missing out in the wild. And it's it's a very dark series, as you might imagine, with little pinpricks of light here and there. But there's a cool trilogy towards the end that features three different detectives, Erlander and two of his associates, who are working on three different cases at the same time. So you read these three books, and they all take place at the same time, and you get different perspectives from them as they're working on these cases. So they're a main character in their own book, but they're just a supporting character in the other book. And it's a kind of a loose trilogy that really kind of fits together in a big puzzle that leads to really the end of the series, the final novel.
Hmm.
Which I think it's called Strange Shores. That might be wrong, but really a nice addition to the Icelandic noir, the Nordic noir genre. Indridson's Erlander mysteries. He's got another series featuring a detective called Conrad, but this is the one that really caught me off guard and blew me away. It was kind of thing where I was reading just about everything. Once I figured out the order, I went back and read them in order, and the story made a lot more sense. Number 2 on my list, and I would say this is recent, but I've been reading this guy for years. The first one is called The Poacher's Son in this series. If you're interested in the outdoors and the environment and ecology, you might want to pick up the Mike Bowditch mysteries from author Paul Dwyron. That's Doiron. Mike Bowditch is a game warden in Maine. So the bulk of the story takes place takes place down east, I guess, over in Maine. And it's all about Mike Bowditch and the folks he gets involved with. It has a colorful cast of Maine personalities, including a retired older game warden who's kind of his mentor. I won't call it a parade, but he does have 2 or 3 girlfriends throughout the series. He makes friends and enemies along the way. I do recommend reading them in order because it does tell a larger story. And you also are treated to a really wonderful, in many ways, history on the game warden profession, and kind of a travelogue of what it's like to be in the state of Maine. And you learn a lot about Maine politics and along the way. I've got one waiting for me actually on my list, the latest one in paperback, the Mike Bowditch Mysteries. And of course, with a name like The Poacher's Son, as you might imagine, he comes from a pretty rarefied stock. His father's a poacher. And so he's trying to make up for a legacy of his father's as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so that is the Mike Bowditch Mysteries. The great thing about that is it could be the dead of summer, and you could be reading one of his stories that's set he's got one that's set right like in the middle of January, and you're reading this in the summer and just freezing your ass off reading this book. The final series I want to throw out there for the summer reading list is by Charles Todd, who's actually not a author, but authors. It's a mother and son team. She usually handles the plotting, and he does the historical research. The mother unfortunately passed away in 2021, so I don't know the status of these series. I'm guessing they're going to stop at this point. I cannot bring myself to read the final novel in the series. I've got it on my shelf. I've had it a while. I realize it's the last one I'm going to read, so I just haven't touched it yet. They're known as the Ian Rutledge series, and these might be my favorite mystery series of all time. I think I might have told you about these at one point. Set in the UK just after World War One. The first in this series is called A Test of Wills from 1996. And it's about an inspector for Scotland Yard who was also a survivor of the Somme. He was an officer at the Somme in World War One, one of the bloodiest and worst battles of World War One. And in fact, I believe he's the sole survivor of his entire group. So just about every man under his command died, and he somehow survived. So he's got a lot of guilt. He's got a lot of issues he's dealing with. And he makes his superiors uncomfortable in Scotland Yard. So they send him off to the hinterlands of England and Wales and Scotland to solve mysteries because they don't like being around him because he creeps them out. And he is also accompanied by, perhaps, maybe or may not, a ghost of a Scottish soldier who died under his command named Hamish. So you don't quite know if Hamish is real or imagined or part of his brain talking to him, but Hamish always sits over his left shoulder in the car because he drives a right-hand drive car. He always sits over his left shoulder in the back of the car and talks to him as they drive.
Oh.
And so they have conversations about the case, and you don't quite know what's going on with Hamish, if he's really a ghost or just if this guy's got some issues and he's just talking to himself. But they are set in lovely little English Welsh villages. They always take on a different heir. Sometimes it's about the British aristocracy. Sometimes it's about other survivors of World War One. There's a companion series to it featuring Ian's cousin, who is a nurse. Her name is Bess Crawford. I've only read one of those, so I might go back once Ian's stories are done, go back and read the Bess Crawford series. She's a nurse who served in World War One. That series is quite good as well. But if you like that era, it's kind of like reading this series. It's kind of like when you discover that one of my favorite movies, Chariots of Fire, is, yes, it's about the Olympics, but it's also about a country coming to terms with World War One. What that movie's about. This is kind of what this is about too.
Right.
This guy trying to put his life together after, his life has moved on while he was over fighting in France. So that's my list of summer reading favorites from the detective thriller mystery genre: Stuart Kaminsky's Toby Peters series, Catherine Miller Haynes's Rosie Winter series, Arnaldur Indridsson's Erlander series, Paul Dwyern's Mike Bowditch mysteries, and Charles Todd's Ian Rutledge series.
Yeah, very
I
cool.
might throw a bone out there for the Tony Hillerman one that I just devoured, the one that you like, the Lee Porn and Chi novels as well, that you were really into. They're set primarily in New Mexico and the Four Corners area is also another good one. But
yeah,
that's my list.
And there are tons of the Hillerman books. I'm not sure how many books he wrote before he passed away, and I know his daughter has started writing. Is now a writer as well. I'm not sure whether she's using the same characters, carrying them on. Is she?
Yeah.
I've not read any of her stuff yet, but yeah, it's great stuff.
No, I've read all of his original in that series because they're just so tight and economical, and you can read them in a weekend.
Yeah, they're pretty easy and very straightforward. And then you were talking about Nordic noir. I was reminded of the Wallander series as well.
Oh yeah. Henning Mankell, yeah.
So I think I read one of those books, and then the series that has Kenneth Branagh in it is well done and creepy and dark, and will make you very, very. I was very, very nervous watching that series.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, okay, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen?
Yeah, they really captured. They really kind of captured the market there for a while. That was something everybody was talking about. Was the Harry Hula series from what is his name? I can't think of it. It's gone. But there've also been
it's pronounced Harry Potter. No.
Yes. No, there's a character whose name you look at it, and you think it's pronounced Harry Hole, but it's pronounced Harry Hula. But some of these, the Lee Porn and Chi novels was turned into, I don't know, do you know it's turned into a TV series?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dark Winds, which is
it's not very good.
Oh, you don't like it? I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not great.
It's got a phenomenal cast in it, and it kind of takes off from the mysteries, and it's set in the American Southwest, so I'll always watch something like that. But
right.
If you're out there looking for something to read, check one of these out. You can find these in any fine bookstore. Except for probably Stuart Kaminsky. You might have to dig around for those and check those out. But if you do see a Stuart Kaminsky book, even if it's not a Toby Peters, pick it up because it's going to be a fun read. I was torn between this and the Porfiry Rosnikov series set in Soviet. The guy's nickname is Wash Tub because he's such a big guy. But yeah, great series of books. Thanks to StopYourKillingMe.com and my old friends at the great bookstore Murder by the Book in Houston, Texas, including my friend the late David Thompson, who turned me on to a lot of these series back in the early 2000s. So there's my summer reading list.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet. This is a fun episode. I don't feel depressed or
nothing too dark. I'm not feeling despondent and have to go drink or anything like that. So yeah, light and frilly.
I'm not confused or angry after this episode, which is
always a good sign.
All right, folks. Thanks as always for listening.
Yep. Please like and share our stuff on whichever platform. Give us 5 stars if you can. Shoot us a review. Go to dreamidiots.com. We actually have a bunch of new merch on the website. Check us out on patreon.com at Dream Idiots, Facebook and Instagram at Dream Idiots, and drop us an email. Occasionally we do get a note from someone I got an email a few days ago about a Texas-based true crime story that I may have to
Ooh.
use here this summer. It was a story I already knew about, but it was recently covered fairly prominently by a larger publication. So I may have to use that here soon. And but just check in and say, hey, that's great, and thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Well, be good to each other.
This is a Rough Tiger production.
Bong bong,
Mhm.
Brian.
Bong bong,
Bong bong.
bong bong. Good.